Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Steve Jobs. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Podnuts Pro. I am your host, Marvin B., coming at you live from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where the weather was really nice today. And at this point in the evening, it is a partly cloudy night, 81 degrees, but the real feel is 79. So there is your weather check for this evening. Hello, friends, and welcome to the show. This is our regularly scheduled Podnuts Pro live show, the show that is your podcast for IT business support. We share product stories and tips, all in an effort to help you run your business better, smarter, and faster. We are going to do just that tonight. This is also a special show. We are co-streaming to a personal Uncle Marv feed because the guests that I have on this evening, Renee and Vincent Catanzaro, are friends of mine. Well, they're both friends now, but Renee was a friend of mine in high school. So this is part of the show where I get to talk to somebody who's almost famous running a nice, successful business, and I can relate it to tech. So that is going to be the show this evening. They are going to help me through a better process of hiring as I look for a service manager. So that should be interesting. So tonight's show is presented by NetAlly. NetAlly is the home of your handheld network testers that make discovery and troubleshooting easier. And I won't be doing a full demonstration tonight, but I do want to tell you I carry the network tools with me everywhere. I even got a chance to use it today. As I was leaving a customer, they asked a question about their Wi-Fi, saying that, the people that put on our Wi-Fi say it's just fine, but we have people that come in and every time we try to do presentations, it doesn't seem to work. So I took my Etherscope over to the location where the person was sitting doing the presentation, ran my Wi-Fi tester there, and saw that they were right at the edge, about 75 decibels of signal noise, where the quality probably wasn't good for the device that they were on. So I was able to show that to them, take some screenshots of my test, and hopefully they will be getting a new access point. They are not my client. They're somebody that I sub for, but it still is something when you can carry around the tools and they say, hey, can you check this out for me? Yes, I did. All right. So let's see here. We're going to do a little bit of order change up tonight in the show. Normally I would do announcements here. I would do the news and Florida Man story here, but we're going to get right to it with our guests. And I'm going to bring them on stage right now. And I'm talking about Renee and Vincent Catanzaro. Guys, how are you doing?
Hey, Marv. It's great to see you again.
Hey, good to see you again.
Glad to be here, Marv.
There you are, Vince. I was waiting for you to chat. So for those of you that are joining us live, you can see Renee and Vincent here. This is the live show for every Wednesday night on Podnuts Pro. This is actually part 2. We did a show Monday on part 1. It was a little bit more informal, a little laid back. We talked about our history growing up. We talked about how Renee and Vince met and stuff that we're not going to mention on the tech show tonight. But if you want to go back and listen to that show, you'll find that both on the Podnuts Pro feed and the Uncle Marv podcast feed Monday at 8 p.m. It's also in your podcatcher on your favorite podcatching app. So tonight, we're going to do something a little different. So before we get into me trying to hire somebody, let's first tell everybody what your company is and what you guys do. Who wants to go?
I'll go ahead and
Vince
start us off. Yep. Our company is Renee Vincent, Executive Placement. Renee and I are a husband and wife team that do executive recruiting, typically hiring from the director level and above. We support private equity firms in the financial services industry and the technology industry.
All right. And Renee, how long have you guys been doing this together?
Well, we officially launched the Renee Vincent organization in January.
Okay. So we're in on the cutting edge here. Ground floor.
Cutting edge.
Can we buy stock?
Well, you'll be the first. You'll be the first to know, Marv.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the difference, because most of the people that I communicate with in the tech industry that are business owners of, managed service providers, some of them will have, a few technicians, they'll have a service staff, they'll have admin staff. And when you get to a certain size, you need help hiring. And most of us are used to doing the things that everybody, I think, is doing, going to LinkedIn or Indeed or Career Builder or whatever those firms are. But you're a little bit different. You're not exactly a headhunting firm. But what's the real main difference for an executive search organization?
Well, Marvin, we are certified partners with the Predictive Index, and as certified partners, we're also certified talent optimization leaders. And with that, we use the suite of tools through the Predictive Index. The Predictive Index was originally created by a gentleman by the name of Arnold Daniels about 65 years ago. It was first implemented through the U.S. Army in World War II in regards to some successful completions of missions. They wanted to figure out why and how that team works so well together. And so it's now a scientifically proven measure of behavioral tendencies in the workplace. It has over 500 validation studies. There's been some 20 million plus assessments that have been issued. And Renee Vincent uses the PI to solve business problems through the lens of understanding individuals with data analytics and workplace psychology.
All right. So both of these things that you mentioned, the Predictive Index, and there's another one that I took, the job index?
Well, that was an inventory skills assessment for the person that you wanted to hire. So we use that Predictive Index suite of tools to then look at talent optimization. So we can use it when we're hiring specifically for a candidate, but it's very important to have the client or the stakeholder hiring managers input into what type of candidate they're actually looking for, so that we can hone our candidate pool. And LinkedIn is a great source. I mean, we find our candidates through LinkedIn. It's just the way that we go about measuring if they're the right fit, not just from a skills and ability level, but also from a cultural fit perspective.
All right. So let me ask a quick question. And I know you're not prepped for every question I'm going to come up with. That's the beauty of hanging with Uncle Marv. But in terms of when you're seeking candidates, now, some of the things that you checked off in the Predictive Index are not things you're going to see on a person's resume, in their bio, in their history. So how do you go about finding those things from those people?
So what we typically would do, Marv, right, is as we're, we tend to do outbound searches. So we're not posting ads, we're not advertising jobs, we're selecting who we want to target. And then once we do that and we engage a candidate into an opportunity, then we'll do the behavioral assessment, which we've done the skills inventory with the customer. So we have an understanding of what the customer is looking at. And so we can avoid making any cultural mistakes. It's almost like, it's like Moneyball, like the movie Moneyball, when they did that with the baseball players and, tallied up RBIs and on-base percentage and those kind of things. So all you're trying to do take the average successful hire is a 50% hire. It's basically a crapshoot, right? You roll the dice and you either win or lose. So what we're trying to do and what we functionally do accomplish is moving that bar way up into the 90% success rate so that you're not making mistakes hiring. And, as a talent, person and, from both internal companies in the past is the most expensive part of hiring is year one turnover, right? So if you can avoid year one turnover, you're going to dramatically improve your ability to be successful.
So instead of just finding somebody that checks off the boxes according to skill set and, salary and all of that stuff, you're looking for somebody that actually can be a piece to the entire puzzle, right? So that, when you put it all together, there's the correct image showing for your team.
Absolutely. And we don't issue the PI to just anyone. When we're doing those searches and we're looking typically at passive candidates, ones that aren't searching for positions are usually the ones that, might be the most sought after from a perspective of success. And if we have been able to engage them, we go through a very rigorous qualifying process to understand the candidate, their intrinsic motivators and needs before we put them through the PI assessment.
Okay. And we actually have a question from the chat already. And my good buddy Tom is asking, do you use disc analysis too? And I don't know what that is.
We do not. We do not. We're familiar with it. We know that, there are a lot of HR companies internally will like to use that. I think that is also a good tool, especially when trying to help team members understand each other. So it's, there's a multitude of various indexes and behavioral assessments and tools that are out there. Just like Myers-Briggs, most people are most familiar with the Myers-Briggs, Clifton Strengths. There's a multitude of different tools, but we do not personally use the DISC. We are predictive index partners. So.
Okay. Now, Vince, we'll give a little bit of a background here, and I know we're not going to go over your bios completely, but you have a background in the tech industry. So for my listeners that are, on the Podnuts Pro side, they're going to wonder, well, how is this going to help me, run my managed service business or my computer repair shop? So from your background, just quickly tell us what you did that translates into, what you're doing now.
Sure. So I grew up in technology staffing, contractor staffing with some of the big companies. You would know them. You could look up my LinkedIn profile and be like, oh yeah, I know those guys. And so I kind of grew up in the staffing industry in technology, to the corporate side with Alltel Information Services back before Alltel was sold. Ended up going back to the agency side of the business, then ran global talent acquisition for an education technology company called Promethean, and then made our way to starting this firm. I would tie it together with the predictive index. The predictive index is just one tool that we use. We thought it would be interesting to show your audience, how to get benefit from it. But for example, I had a chief technology officer that when we would hire software engineers, it was a full software team, about a 60-person software team at Prometheus. Under this particular chief technology officer, he had a couple of pretty strict guidelines on a predictive index that if candidates didn't meet, we couldn't move them forward, right? And so, above and beyond having the proper tech stack and the great, financial match for the opportunity, we needed to have the right behavioral profile in order to move the candidates into the interview process.
All right. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I have a need and I say, I need to find a service manager. I need somebody to help me run the business, manage the techs and the tickets and all of that stuff. So what is the first thing that we do?
Well, tonight what we're going to do is we're going to show your behavior profile.
Okay.
So all your just a little bit better. They probably know this subconsciously, but we'll bring it to the forefront, and we'll review your profile. Then we're going to review your skill inventory or your behavior inventory for the actual service manager role, and then we'll do a little quick team building exercise and show how that all works.
All right.
So we are ready. He's going to lead conversation, and I'm going to drive the screen share.
All right. So Marvin, this is your predictive index. One of the things that I should mention to you are there's 17 different profiles or indexes within PI. And of that, you are the altruist. And the altruist is a congenial and cooperative individual who's efficient and precise with his work ethic. You're laughing. Does that not sound like you?
Well, I mean, the term altruistic, I'm sure some of my audience members will laugh at that, but let's go on.
Okay. So if you remember correctly, you took two different questionnaires in the predictive index assessment. They're pretty short, multiple choice, about 5 to 10 minutes at the most, two different questions. The first set of questions was in regards to your self-concept or your opinion of what others expect of you in the workplace, or how you need to adapt, how you feel you need to adapt. Then the second set of questions was in regards to yourself, or those are going to be considered your basic motivation and needs, who you are most innately. And what I like about the PI versus some of the others like Myers-Briggs is it pretty much remains unchanged from the time that you're 18 on. So by the time you become an adult, your innate personality and behaviors are pretty much set. And that's what we see on your chart here today. And we're going to be looking at these. You'll see two different charts on the screen now, and you'll see a number of letters, circles with letters. And I'm going to tell you what those letters are to begin with. We'll see A, B, C, and D on both charts. And what those letters stand for is the A is going to be for dominance. And dominance in the workplace is going to be your drive to exert your influence on people and events. Then we see B, and that's your extroversion trait or your drive for social interaction with other people in the workplace. Then we come down and we see C, which stands for patience in this situation, and that's your drive for consistency and stability. Then we have D, which is for formality. And formality in this perspective is your drive to conform to rules and to structure. So I want to point out that everybody is very individual. So even though you fall into a profile, it doesn't mean that everybody within that profile's charts are going to line up. Their letters might not be on top of each other, but you will have a group of characteristics that will be strongly similar. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah.
So when we look at these graphs, you'll also see the blue line at the bottom of each. And Vincent, at the blue line, you also see a midpoint. And that midpoint, if you can imagine that that's the average of a bell curve. And on that blue line, you also see little white hashtags. Each hashtag is considered a sigma. There are 5 sigmas within a standard deviation. The deviations are shown by those gray vertical lines. So as we go to the right, this would be considered a +1 deviation, +2, and on the left, it's going to be -1, -2, and so on. Anything to the right of the midpoint is what we consider a high drive, and anything to the left of the midpoint is what we consider a low drive. High versus low, one's not better than the other. It's just the way your drives show on the graph, okay? So what we see next, what we like to look at is the drives that show the points the farthest from midpoint. So you're looking at A and D are your farthest away from midpoint. Do you see that, Marv?
I do. So
Okay.
My collaborative and my precise. And you said that the negative is not really a negative?
It's not a negative, it's just a lower drive. So what we
Okay.
see, for example, on your C drive, that's considered patience. So a low patience drive just means that you're driving, right? So you're more in
Patient.
tune with say again, Vince?
You're impatient. In the left, low patience, you want things done faster.
Yep.
Okay.
And you like variety in your work, you might like mobility in your work. It means too that you don't want to do the same routine day in and day out. You like that variety. You could get impatient with those type of,
Okay.
same
So I'm not
routines or
really
standards.
collaborative. Is that what you're saying there,
No,
according to
you
this
are
chart?
collaborative.
Oh, I am
That's like
collaborative.
you're actually, it's your highest drive.
Oh,
You're very
okay.
collaborative, and you're also very formal. And formal in this particular instance is precise. You're very precise and you're very accurate, and you do that fast. So those are great strengths.
Okay.
So what we see with this particular profile a little bit more of is we see communication styles. This extroversion trait is also very high. So we have somebody, and anybody that knows you, Marv, knows that you're pretty extroverted. You like to use and leverage people and relationships to get work done. When we're thinking about this in a workplace environment, so you're extroverted, enthusiastic. Your communication style also might be a little bit more persuasive in nature. And then we look at different things like your D formality means that you closely follow up on delegating the details. If you're going to delegate, you want to make sure that it's done right and it's done timely. So you keep that a little bit closer to the cuff, so to speak. With decision making, you tend to bring others into the decision. That's where that collaborativeness comes in. And you also make decisions carefully and cautiously. That D makes you an individual that really keeps the rules, the regulation, the company, and the safeguards in the front and foremost part of your mindset when doing business. So it makes you a little bit more cautious with risk. Yet you respond well to pressure, if that makes sense. Some strengths within this particular profile is you are able to build team cohesion and collaboration. You actually enjoy teaching others as well. You're organized and thorough with your follow-up. You're able to be a multitasker. You're able to juggle rather multiple priorities. But with these behaviors, you also have needs. And so the needs for somebody with your particular profile is someone that needs and appreciates harmony within the workplace, opportunities, again, to interact and collaborate with others, and opportunities to handle multiple priorities. And then the behaviors that we see with this profile is someone who's cooperative, sociable, fast-paced, and yet organized, right? So those are some of the needs and behaviors. And then when we think about from a workplace environment and what your colleagues might see, they're going to see someone that is people-oriented, socially focused. You naturally empathize with people. You easily see their point of view or understanding of their emotions. You're positive and non-threatening in your communication, and that enables you to be a teacher and a sharer, often working collaboratively with others to help in any capacity. And then you're also that cautious with risk. So they might see you as someone that's driven to protect the company against risk by thoroughly leveraging your background and strictly following the book. You're cautious. You follow a well-established and proven plan to avoid making any mistakes. You do the background research necessary to have proof to support decisions before action is taken. What are your thoughts? Do you think that sounds like you at all?
Well, most of it. It is kind of interesting to hear that. Okay, yeah. I mean, it feels pretty good to hear it the way you said it.
So what we see in a summary for you specifically is we find you to be a pleasant and extroverted individual, an effective communicator, someone who is able to stimulate and motivate others. You're a congenial personality, very friendly with an interested attitude, making you readily approachable. You get along easily with a wide variety of people, and I can testify to that over the many years that we've known each other. Your drive is for directing at work, working for others. You derive particular satisfaction from doing things for others, company management, the team, the company's customers. You're particularly effective as a teacher and communicator of the company's policies, programs, and systems. Again, you work at a faster than average pace. You're attentive to details. You're both quick and accurate. You follow up closely to ensure the work gets done correctly if you need to delegate. And in general, you're cautious and careful. You're respectful of the company authority and traditions. And that's what we find in regards to your motivators, your drives, your behaviors, strengths, and needs through the predictive index.
Wow. Okay.
So what are your thoughts, Marv?
Well, I'm sure that most people will probably agree with you. I'm not sure that the wife would agree with you, but but that sounds pretty good. It does sound spot on when it comes to the business and how I view things, and you know, try to make everything work. But you know, obviously, we've got to get things done. I do have to pay attention to detail. I mean, my butt's on the line when stuff's got to get done. So
Absolutely. And from Kim's perspective, we have to keep in mind that this is workplace drives. So, but we can show also a one-on-one relationship with you and Kim in regards to a working relationship. And it might point out any, you know, areas to be mindful of in your communication style with each other.
that's a nice way to put it. All right. So this is obviously what we would do first. You would get this from the people that are looking to find a piece to their puzzle. So that's what you've done. This is me. Now you can turn this around to say, okay, what candidate fits with this, right?
Well, and the reason why we do this, Marv, is because if you're the hiring manager, we have to have you have some self-awareness. Okay. So your extroversion trait, you have the sociability to talk things out. But if you're working with a team member that's B is a low drive on the opposite side of the chart, they're very introverted, introspective. They don't want to talk things out. They want to first be told of what they're going to be talking about, when they're going to be talking about it, and they want to get their thoughts together before they talk to you. So some of it is just a matter of self-awareness of yourself and of your team, how you work and relate together to get the work done.
So this makes sense. And I'm just going to throw out, I was involved in a conversation yesterday where a group of owners were talking about, you know, hiring people. And then of course it devolved into, you know, talking about technicians and, you know, putting in their time and communicating, you know, when they're struggling with something, or talking about the differences in communication types where, you know, some people, you know, they just want to text and email. They really don't want to talk to anybody. And others, you know, hey, you've got to be able to, you know, communicate not only with the customer, but with, you know, your peers and your bosses and stuff like that. So this falls right in line with the things that we talk about all the time.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the role of service manager. Did a behavioral inventory for this as well, and I will let Renee still drive the conversation, but to switch.
Okay. So in regards to the skills assessment inventory that you completed for the role of a service manager, the predictive index came back with several different profiles that they felt would be the best match. And the individual, either an analyzer, a strategist, or controller profile. And with these profiles, you have people that are intense with high standards, disciplined and reserved in regards to their personality. Somebody who's very results oriented, innovative and analytical, driving for change, and or someone who is detail oriented and conservative with a high preference for high quality and technical expertise. So with that, these particular profiles have people that exhibit certain behaviors. And those are intense, restless, and driving. So they mirror you in regards to having what we call a low C drive or a low patience drive. And they also enjoy variety within their work, opportunities to work at a faster than average pace, and maybe some mobility within that work. They enjoy managing multiple priorities, taking initiative, delivering high quality products and services.
That sounds like somebody I would want.
So with that, their behaviors are more proactive in nature. They take the initiative. They can be somewhat competitive, driven to get the things done. Positive response to pressure, And they're also careful with the rules, meaning that they're conscientious, they're very thorough, very precise, and concerned with rules and accuracy. So
Okay.
Vince, you want to take over from here?
Sure. So I'm just going to bring up the chart, right? That's similar to your predictive index from having the center point and standard deviations high or low. So when you went through that behavioral index, what you came back with is you wanted someone that was on the higher side of and more independent, putting forth and pushing to get their will in work, right? Someone who is a little bit more on the reserve side. Doesn't mean that they're not articulate and good communicators, but a little bit more on the thinking before speaking side. Your widest one was driving, right? Getting things done fast, multitasking, and then high formality, high accuracy, high precision. So this is the behavior profile that you'd be looking for. And where this becomes important, if we found someone with all the skill sets, we didn't have a job description in here that we use. If you laid out a job description for me and the job description said, we need this person to have these 10 skills or experiences, but was opposite to what you really wanted, you'd end up being really unhappy with the hire. So I'll let Renee talk to you about, we put into the, forgive me. We put into the predictive
We are
index.
live.
That's okay.
course.
While he's pulling that up, what we did find from your inventory assessment, though, is that the job required an ability to deal with abstract concepts, systems, and ideas, and all of that in an organized and self-disciplined way. Again, this person, the job is technically demanding and strictly business with little need for influential people interaction. Central to the job was the need to weigh all decisions carefully and thoroughly based on expertise in order to avoid unpredictable risk. Getting the job done and getting it done right are two equal drivers for this job. So
I put the Renee and I and yourself, Marv, and Kim in as candidates, and to align our behaviors to the and we can stack rank them. And so from a behavioral match, Renee is a 9. So if Renee had the experience and skill set that you were looking for, she'd be an excellent candidate for your service manager. Kim, she's like the opposite, right? Where you wanted a high A, high D, low B, low C. She's literally the invert. So she is a 3 out of 10 match for the role. Wouldn't be the service manager that you were looking for, even if she had the right skills and experience.
Okay.
Happy with her.
Does that say observer? What is it? Or collaborator?
Collaborator.
Okay.
Renee is a controller. If you haven't, I'm sure you knew that already.
I wasn't going to say that out loud, but
so that's kind of how you're able to play it into the job, and then I'll show you real quick, right? So Renee mentioned doing a relationship guide, right? So if I put you a high quality match for you, and to hire her, all right, relationship strengths, Renee, I support their ideas in creating a unified front when communicating Marvin's perspective to other stakeholders. Marvin and Renee are friendly, expressive, and engaging in communication, readily established rapport. There's also some cautions. Renee may dominate. Marvin's ideas or concerns may get overlooked. Marvin and Renee may interrupt each other and may not suit or may initiate communication when it suits their own individual schedules. then it gives you like relationship tips. Renee may be the one, but Renee should make sure to let Marvin have his say. Pausing to ask Marvin for reactions or feedback, as well as giving credit and acknowledgement when Marvin has a great idea or suggestion. Marvin and Renee should remember to practice active listening and leave each other's conversations with a clear list of next steps. So,
okay.
Multiple we're doing 360 reviews or things like that. This would give you the opportunity to have kind of that one-on-one relationship guide that you could, and it works. Renee and I do it with each other too, right? Because, in the workplace, differently than our home relationship, we are different drivers and we'll end up rubbing up against each other in not such a great way, or have struggling communications, and we'll have to remind each other, hey, this is let's look at best ways to communicate. So that's one of the other things too.
And so as you're gathering candidates and putting them into this, you're able to match them up, not just with the number guide that you had earlier, but you can put that relationship thingy together and show them exactly.
Yeah, you can put one-on-one relationship guides with team members to help them. We also have placards that can be used. For example, if they were in cubicles or outside their offices, that would show that you're a high B. So you're the type of person that wants to talk it out. They could pop in and probably just off the cuff ask you what you think. But Vince, for example, might be a low B. So if you saw that outside of his cube, you might say, oh, I better send him an email, ask for an appointment time, and let him know what I want to discuss. And that can, help people, especially that are introspective and introverted, because it might take their energy away from their concentration of what they're doing, and they might lose the capability of doing their work well if they're prone to interruptions. Does that make sense?
That does.
Okay.
All right. And so now I'm looking at something that says work styles.
Yeah. So this is the and Vince, what we did is we plotted.
Vince, you may have to start over there.
Renee,
you broke up, Vince.
Vince, you broke up, so you need to.
Yeah, start over for me, please.
Sure, Renee. Why don't you do the walkthrough and I'll just do the driving.
Well, let's see. What is it? So this is basically showing the team, and so we're showing the quadrants. And because it's on your screen, guys, and it's very small for me, I'm going to try to look here. The top left quadrant is teamwork and employee experience. The bottom left is process and precision. Then on the top right, we've got innovation and agility. And then on the bottom right, we have results and discipline. So in this particular case, with the 4 people that we put into this team, we're spread out, right? But we're lacking process and precision. So if we needed to hire somebody, or if we needed to move seats for somebody to stretch into another area, we would want them to be someone that could be their nose down, precision oriented, detail oriented, not to get frustrated with, doing the same thing day in and day out. That's the person that's lacking right now, if that makes sense. If you see there's that gap in precision and process.
Yeah, there's nobody in that quadrant at all.
Nobody is in that quadrant at all, but you are right on the line. So you could, most people can stretch comfortably 1 standard deviation. Remember when we talked about those sigmas and those deviations?
Right.
Most individuals can comfortably stretch to 1 standard deviation either way. So you could come into that area. You could do it well, Marvin, but you wouldn't love it. You're very detail oriented, so you could do that. But because you like variety, you might not, love it, but you might be needed in that area to get the work done. Or you hire out for that and you look at somebody that has those traits. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And it certainly makes sense now seeing it on the graph where Kim is much further in the quadrant of teamwork and employee experience than I am. And I usually, tell everybody she is much more of a people person than I am.
So when we see this in larger teams or in organizations, you and Kim both would be what we consider bridge builders. So you might bring other people's ideas, thoughts, and bring different collaborative efforts, multi-departmental group information together and help bridge any gaps.
Okay. And I'm going to chase a bunny rabbit here. On the right side of that screen, it says that the average team size of information technology is 7 people. Is that true?
Well, I think just to get the best gauge of how a team works, to have enough members in different profile styles would give you the idea of what type of team you are and what type of team you want to go to. So, Vince, can you drive through that a little bit?
So Marv, you guys, if this was our team, we would be an adapting team because we are closely covering almost all 4 quadrants. We can look at and kind of jump on any type of project. But with adapting teams, there are strengths to adapting teams and there's blind spots. So 75% of people on adapting teams report that the people on their team understand each other's point of views. Right? That would be a strength. 32% of people on adapting teams are that we those and build
Vincent, you're going to have to say that
a
again
team that
because
is
that was broken up. Can you do that again?
I hate
32% of people.
Wi-Fi. I need that tool. What tool was that, Marvin, that you started with the conversation?
Well, the tool is going to tell you you need
The,
better you need better coverage. What's what it'll tell you. Yeah, just go back to the 32%.
Sure. We'll have to go back. It basically said 32% of adapting team members report that team members are unclear of what their roles and responsibilities are. So then, you could do objectives. So if we were doing, building a team for you, we would really important for you. So let's say for your business, hey, in the results and discipline area, and we looked at, okay, so what kind of team do you want to be?
All right, we missed that whole thing there, Vince.
Producing team, and then we can look for ways to close that gaps. I'm so sorry. But we can identify what kind of team you want to become, and then give you strategies on how to become that team that you want to be to hit the objectives that you want to get to. So that would just be an example of how to use this tool. Yeah. Sorry about that, folks.
And again, you would either move people in their current seats or add people in areas that need to be added.
So even though you're looking for position-based hires, you can actually do those positions based on how they will complement or affect the entire team.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that is interesting. I don't know if we have time, but I'm going to try to get this question in here. Tom asked another question, and can you be successful helping a 5-person organization as you can with a 500 organization?
I would say absolutely, and maybe even more so because it's so critical to get those foundation members correct to begin with and to get that leadership style and cultural match to begin with so that those leaders can then emulate down as you grow, right? So you want to emulate from the top down in regards to your branding, your personal brand, your corporate brand. And when you're able to do that and put the right people in the right seats to begin with, then that helps and builds that culture as you grow.
Okay. So now we've gone through all those processes. We've identified, my index and Kim's index and what we're looking for and stuff. How do you go out and actually find those people? Is that just something you just, accumulate a database of you know, people and executives and stuff, and you keep that, or do you have to go searching for those when the job comes up?
Vince, do you want to take that, or would you like me to? I'll go ahead and
Sure.
take
I'm just
that.
so afraid I'm going to break up. So
Yeah.
yeah. All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's both, Marvin. Obviously, we have relationships, Vincent, especially being in the IT field for 30 years now. He's got a lot of resource connections just through that time. And then, we do have special platforms, recruiting platforms through LinkedIn that we utilize. We're able to do deep dive searches based on certain skill sets. We can also do those searches based on competitors. If you know of people that are doing the similar work and you know that their particular employees would be a good match, we can look at companies, and then we can talk with those candidates, do, like I said, that initial interview to qualify them on their intrinsic motivators of why they might look to make a change, and making sure that it would be a good cultural match, and then following it up with the predictive index tools to ensure that their behavioral drives and their strengths and their needs are going to match up culturally, as well as with skills and abilities in the workplace for the role that you have a need for.
Okay. Now let me go back and ask another question. These are tests that we ourselves have to fill out. You sent me the predictive index. I was the one that selected all the boxes of what I thought and stuff. How often do you have people that are just not in sync with what the results say when they're like, that's not me? How can that be? I shouldn't be in that quadrant.
I've never had that situation.
Okay.
Usually I have an high level executives down to, lower level. It's either it is so spot on, it's scary, or, like you said, I agree with most of that. Yeah. And I don't know, Vincent, have you ever had anybody that has said, that's not me?
No, I think what happens is that people would feel like, oh, hey, this says I'm low detail, but I love the details, right? And that very well may be true. Like you want accuracy, but you'd be most likely to delegate details
Now,
as
and to
opposed to
that
not
point, I
delegate
have had
details.
that come up, and I've even had that come up with Elise, our friends Elise, and what happens is with these profiles, when somebody hears that their extroversion trait, for example, is higher than their detail trait, and they're like, "But I'm all about the details." Well, that might be true, and they might be very good at the details, but in truth, their most driving um, strength or dominant factor, that extroversion. So even though they can do the details, they're more strongly driven to do the work. In your example, for you, for example, and Elise too, that extroversion trait, working with and through others to get the work done. So it doesn't mean that they don't look at the details, because you're obviously a very detailed person, but you're also a very extroverted person. So you just balance those out.
Well, I can tell you this. So from what you showed me, I know that gels from what people tell me all the time. So that's why I could say, yeah, that sounds about right, because people have said that. Whether I believe it or not, that's what it is. We have another question here I'd like to get in, and let me make sure I do this properly. Uh, Dawn has come in, and Dawn is in our industry. She is a rising star, and her question is: when you have IT people that can look at how to fool the test based on what we think you're looking for, how do you figure that out in the hiring process?
So
So I guess that's
I
kind of like the question I asked is what if we check the wrong boxes?
Well, I feel like the way that the test is administered, or I should say the assessment, it's not asking for particular ideas of IT perspectives. It's really asking you in regards to things you think about yourself and what you hear others people, think about you. And so it's based off of that. I don't know that the thing is that novelty is important. If you've taken the test once and you get a result, then if you take it again, the results won't be as accurate. So the initial test is going to be the one that you always want to refer back to, at least in regards to the self. But the self concept can change based off of what you're doing, current project, management team, things like that. That might be something that we look at more frequently, but I don't think that this is a way that you can fool this kind of test. Vincent, do you have any?
Well, I'm breaking up so bad, so I apologize. I think that, it's, I mean, people can probably try to game it. I don't know why they would want to, the test basically says, hey, be yourself, answer honestly. If there's dishonesty in the candidate, through reference checks and other things like that, we should try to identify it, but, I guess anyone can try to game the system, but the
But the
truth of it
candidate
is,
doesn't know. The candidate might not know what you're looking for in that particular role.
Well, from both sides, as the person that's looking to make the hire, I'm going to want to be as accurate as possible because I want to find the best teammate to join the team. So I can't imagine that gaming the system would really work in our sense. And you're right, the candidates probably don't even know what jobs they're looking at, right?
Well, I mean, the candidate doesn't know. When I'm talking to candidates, I don't let them know what company that I'm looking at them for until I'm ready to move. It's down the process. We've done an interview. They've done the PI. I've reviewed their PI. I've aligned and made sure that what they've shared with me and what we've gained from the PI versus what's showing on the LinkedIn all matches up. And it's not until that I'm ready to put them forward to the client that I will, have a right to consent agreed to with the candidate. And it's at that time that I let them know who the company is and not before.
Right.
So there's not really any way that they could say, oh, I know the team over there. I know that they've really had problems with Joe and that's why he's gone. And he was like this. So if I answer opposite of Joe, then I'll get the position because they don't know. And again, each company or organization is different and has different team members and has different needs. And you're not privy to that unless you're the hiring manager.
Right. Okay. All right. So I think Vince is taking a break and going to try to adjust his Wi-Fi, and so we'll do that.
well,
But in the meantime,
I'm still
I'm gonna-
here. I just went off camera.
Okay. So I'm going to put up your website there, reneevincent.win. So anybody that is watching or listening and you are looking to make a hire and you want to use this process because the ones in the past just haven't worked, you've hired people that are gone after a week, a month, 3 months, and you want to try something different, this might be the thing to do. I'm also going to have their guest profiles on the show notes page. So if you head over to podnutspro.com and see that their names will be associated with this podcast, you can go in and look at their profiles and then give them a contact. Any other things that you want to mention before we start to end off the show here?
I'm trying to think.
That was pretty
something came to my
intense.
mind. I was going to say something came to my mind, and then it slipped out as you continued to share what you were sharing.
I was afraid you were going to cut me off, so now I've got that ammunition now in my back pocket.
No, we just thank you for the opportunity to share what we do, and we really enjoy doing it. I think to the point is, once again, it's all about a cultural match. If we have the person that has the talent and the ability, but we put them in the wrong shop, they can be toxic. And that's going to not work for anybody. So we want to ensure that the hiring manager and the candidate, it's a good fit with the team, with the culture of the organization. because we want everybody to be happy. And, we're really motivated by long-term relationships and, just building upon that. So we want to make sure that we get it right. It's not just a one and done with us. So, and
And
we
I think,
also just,
I'm sorry,
I was just
Marv, I
going
was
to say,
going to say,
we also ensure that if an individual doesn't work out within a company, that we help replace that person just to ensure that it's done right and for the long term.
All right, Vince, go.
I was going to say the inventory that you did, you were the only one who did it. But if there was an interviewing team, we would have the whole team do it, and then we would find misalignment up front and get everyone aligned prior to interviewing. So if you ever been in a situation where you can't get the people who do the interview to agree, it's because they're actually looking for different people, even though the skill set's the same.
That's got to be fun. Yes, no. Is this thing
Well,
on?
it's just, again, it's that self-awareness, and that's why we like to have people like you in the hiring spot do your own assessment so you can have some self-awareness, right? And
Right.
then to do the inventory so that there's awareness in regards to what you're looking for in a candidate. And if you are working with other stakeholders, that everybody is in alignment, because oftentimes, as Vince says, people think they're wanting the same individual, but they're not. They have different drives and motivators themselves in regards to what they think that position should be skilled at.
All right. Something to pay attention to when you're going through the process. All right. So, Renee and Vince, thank you very much. We are going to continue on with the show. We normally do this part of the show at the beginning, but I wanted to make sure we did not run out of time. So we are going to go in the news. So it has been reported that ransomware has affected up to 72% of organizations in the past year. SpyCloud is a research organization that has just reported an overwhelming majority of cybersecurity leaders say that 81% believe their organization's security is above average or exceptional, while at the same time, 72% reported that their organization was affected by ransomware at least once in the past 12 months. And then within that, 18% report that they were impacted more than 6 times in the past year. I'm not going to read the whole story. I'll have a link into the show notes and you can go back and look at that. But I will have an adjacent story that a free Chinese VPN exposed data from over 1 million users. So a company called QuickFox has a free virtual private network primarily used to access Chinese sites from outside of mainland China. And the reason I am bringing this up is because I know some of you accuse China of spying, but then you're going to go use their VPN. Well, that's just not right. So commenting on the find, WizCase says that the data exposed a variety of personally identifiable information, or PII, of the users of their service, including their names, phone numbers, and more. There was no need for a password or login credentials to see this information. The data was not encrypted. So that is just something to think on if you're looking for free VPN stuff. And before I get into the Florida man story this evening, I want to say thank you to listener Bob, who sent me an email trying to submit his Florida man story of a Florida man arrested for his story was Florida man indicted for shooting down sheriff's office drone. And that was in the running last week before we went with the Naples man who scared kids at a local library. And that was in honor of John Dubinsky, another Florida man who is leaving the tech industry. R.I.P. John. Tonight's Florida man story. A man was arrested for trying to rob a Waffle House with finger guns. Madison County Sheriff's Office deputy said Edward Rodriguez was arrested for an unarmed robbery and assault. An employee with the Waffle House called 911 after the incident. Deputies said that no one was injured and the suspect got into a car and left the parking lot. Multiple deputies responded and witness told them that a white man wearing a gray hoodie, dark jeans, and a dark hat went into the Waffle House with his dog. The suspect said he was high and drunk before grabbing some napkins and walking out after he started shouting, "Get on the ground, y'all are getting robbed," pointing his finger guns at the staff. So that is going to be fun. That is your Florida man story for the evening. Renee, Vince, you guys, I didn't tell everybody that you live in Georgia, and you now have the option of competing with a Georgia man story, or would you like to just simply answer a random question?
A random question, Marv. I don't think I can top the Waffle House finger gun story.
Okay. All right. So let me get this in. I'm going to have you both ask the same question. And let me first pull up my random question generator. And there we go. And our question for tonight is, click here. What's something interesting about you that few people know? This should be fun.
I guess I'll start. I don't know how interesting this is, but you know me as Renee. My first name is actually Juliet. I never went by Juliet. My family always called me Renee, and teachers would sometimes try to call me Juliet. And so when I lived in another state, when we moved and the teachers kept calling me Juliet, I said, you could call me Julie. So I actually still have friends that call me Julie, but I've always been known to you as Renee, and not everybody knows that my first name is Juliet. But our firstborn daughter now holds that as her first name. So
very interesting. And you know that I had to, catch myself sometimes because I would call you Frappaport and, go to introduce you and would forget your first name. So I didn't know either of them.
There you go. You're so intense on that nickname.
All right. And Vincent, what's something interesting about you that few people know? Besides your Wi-Fi.
Well, hopefully you can hear me, Marv. I know I'm breaking up. Yeah. Besides that, I'm such an open book. I guess maybe for the listeners, I'm a Bronx kid, so I was and
he loves West Side Story. How about
did you hear
that?
any of that?
Bronx kid.
No, we didn't. So even fewer people are going to know.
That's it. Bronx kid.
Renee helped out. You
New
like West Side Story? Okay.
All right.
All right.
Was there something else to it, Vince, that you wanted to share?
No, that's perfect. My Wi-Fi is not strong enough to handle StreamYard. That's what I've learned.
All right. I'll get emails and comments about that later, but I'll take the hit for you, Vince. Don't worry about it. All right. So that is it for the show, guys. I want to say thank you for hanging out. Let me grab my closing statements here. I should let the listeners know that currently, right now, I am not planning a live show for next week. And the reason is I am going to be in Orlando at the ASCII Success Summit. I will be there with our good friend Mike Smith. We are going to be there for Wednesday and Thursday. That is October 27th and 28th. If you are near Orlando and want to come by, the event is free. So you can still head over to ASCII Success Summit or ASCIIevents.com. I'll have the link in the show notes so you can still get into the conference for free. You can see not just ASCII people, but vendors, other technicians, and we can sit and chat. Mike Michalowicz is going to be the keynote speaker, and he is going to be focusing on one of his books, Fix This Next, the ultimate business owner's tool to find the right fix. Identify, resolve core needs, pinpoint the foundational level, find and fix again, all of that good stuff. So Mike Michalowicz, many of you know him from a couple years ago. He was at the ITO Compass in Chicago, where we all got books signed by him, The Pumpkin Plan. So I may be taking my book up there and having him sign that. So next week, that's what will be happening. I will be doing some podcasts while I'm there. We'll be interviewing some ASCII members, some of the vendors there. I just don't know when those will air. And then we will be back the following week. And I believe the guest, let's see, I'll go ahead and take a quick gander over here and ruin the audio podcast here. But the next guest, November 3rd, my good friend, Bradley Gross, the attorney for your IT industry. We will be talking contracts and sharing some wonderful stories of how the managed service agreement has saved my butt. That should be fun. So, all right, guys, that's it for this show. I want to say thank you to Juliet Frappaport and Vincent Catanzaro. Thank you guys very much. Again, their website, reneevincent.win. If you are looking to make a better hiring process, look them up. And I do want to say thank you to our presenting sponsor, NetAlly. And I also want to say thank you to John Reed over at Computers Done Right. He is our live streaming sponsor so that we can put this up on StreamYard that is apparently not compatible with Wi-Fi. So we'll have to work on that. That is going to do it for this episode, folks. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching. We'll see you here back soon. And until then, holla. There we go.
Awesome.
All right. Great show,
Would have been
guys.
even
All right, Marv,
better.
I'm at 16 megabits. If you can hear me, I'm at 16 megabits per second upload.
Yeah, okay. Whatever. That
Did
just
you
didn't
hear me?
work.
Did you hear me or no?
I heard 16.
I don't know. I tested it just to see. Like, so it says I'm at 16 upload and 25 download. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's what I'm at.
I don't know.
All
We're
I
gonna
know
have
is
to-
we're in the same house, and I don't know why he's, we've never had this problem before. We're on calls together all day long, and so I'm not quite sure why, but
you need a tech to come and evaluate your environment there
yeah.
to see what's going on. What did you say? That you said you had a booster down there?
Yeah.
Is that one of
Yeah,
I
those,
was wondering if it. I'm wondering if it has something to do with his microphone, because it's only happened when he's been using that microphone that I've noticed.
what? The lovely pod mic? Come on.
Yeah. I don't know if that could have anything to do
No,
with it, but
it's
I'm just.
I don't think it's the microphone. The microphone's good. I have two of those myself.
What does Google Mesh mean?
that's what we have.
What do we have?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Marvin
Well,
knows what it is.
Yeah, I know what that is. I don't use it.
That's the
I use
problem, Marv.
Ruckus. I use Ruckus.
I
All right,
need-
well,
I
Marv,
need-
what?
I need to be hardwired.
That would help. But how big is your house? Now let's go back. Let me go back. And if you don't want to talk, because we're still live for people watching, 3 people are still watching. So are you in a big old house where you're on different levels? Is somebody in the basement and somebody in the front or the back? And what's the layout there without mapping out every room?
It's about a 6,500 square foot house, and I'm on one story on one side, and he's on another story on the complete opposite side.
Oh, and where's the access point itself, the main access point?
Well, we have two different Wi-Fi's and boosters, so, and he's got one right where he
It's
is.
in a spot that's not centrally located because Renee doesn't want to see the lights in the central part of the house because it distracts her. So we have it tucked in the corner. That's the problem, Marv.
I don't like wires and things, Marv.
Okay,
What's that light up there? That's the light on the for our Wi-Fi. Oh no, we got to move that into a corner somewhere. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what was it, in like the middle of the living room above the big screen TV or something?
Yes, he's got one there too. Well, that's some other
Yes,
thing.
that's where it
but
was.
Yeah, we got,
Okay.
I hate all
I had
that
to move
stuff.
it from
I
there.
want that tucked in, Marvin. Tucked in and clean it up.
All right, we can fix all that.
But you've got something sitting out there that I told you I don't like the lights, and it's right there.
Oh my goodness gracious.
It's
Sound
right
like
out
Kim,
in the
don't
middle
like
of the
the
room,
lights.
Vincent.
Do you have a clock in your bedroom? Do you not, like the lights from the numbers?
Marv, I have to sleep with eye mask on because Vincent says I must be trying to sleep with my eyelids open, but I must just have thin eyelids, I don't know what to tell you. If the kids leave a light on 3 rooms over, I know it's on.
Oh my.
Yeah, I've identified the problem is that Renee sleeps with her eyes open. That's the problem. Like if you close your eyes, then you can sleep. It's easier.
He tells me I'm a vampire and I never sleep, so.
That's why you can't get the lighting right with the shadows
Yeah.
and the stuff.
That's it, Marv. You got it.
Oh, so let me go back and
I'm
ask.
sorry about the
And
technical difficulties, Marv.
that's okay. I've had worse, so that's why you didn't see me worry. Now the question I was going to ask you is, you took the index off. Did we cover everything there, or did you not think we had time?
Well, there's one more graph, and I'm going to send you a detailed compiled reports, but I mean, or a number of reports, but it's like 7-8 pages, the data that we collect.
Okay.
There was one additional graph, and it was the synthesis. And we really didn't go into the second graph in regards to how you perceive the demands on you in the workplace. It looks like you feel like you need to be a little less extroverted than you are, a little less driving, a little more patient than you really actually
Okay.
are.
Now
So those,
that would be more representative of how I see things, because I do
yeah.
think I have to do that.
And Vince, if you want to share your screen again and put that back up, I can show Marv what I'm talking about there. Can you get your Wi-Fi to work?
No, I don't because of technology issues. So no, I'm not going to do it. We'll have to do it. You have to do it one-on-one with Marv.
Okay.
I can do that too. But yeah, so so that you can see this, there's 3 different graphs. We kind of had the first one up and we talked a little bit about the self and the self concept, but the
Right.
way that typically you want to see those graphs pretty much almost laying on top of each other. Otherwise, you want to see that they're within that one standard deviation that we talked about. So 5
Right.
sigmas, either way.
Okay.
And so what we see is that yours aren't in exact alignment. What we're seeing is that you're feeling some pressures and demands that make you, feel like you have to behave in a certain way in the workplace. But
Okay.
then when we go into the synthesis, it brings it more in line, and you're kind of back within that standard, well within that standard deviation. So it's not like you're working outside of your box, if that makes sense. Like if you were working, sometimes we might see somebody that has a low A on the left side of the graph, and yet the perceived demands in the workplace are this A all the way over on the complete opposite, or the high drive side. Well, that's not what they're comfortable with. And if they're having to drive, hard and innovation and do things, basically give them the reins and let them run with it, when they're more collaborative in nature, they're going to burn out, right? Or they're not going to know that they're on the right path, and it's not going to be necessarily a good fit for them.
Hmm.
So that's when we see that crash and burn, so to speak.
Okay.
So those are the different things. And then the other part, this third graph here is the E. We didn't cover that. And the E is based on how you make decisions. And some people, like me, are more gut and intuitive in nature. We take into account the logical stuff, but we tend to lean a little bit more to intuitiveness, where you tend to lean more to or lean more towards the logical and the factual to make and base your decisions. Does that make sense?
It does. And,
So,
and it certainly helps. Now, did Kim fill out one of those as well?
Kim did an assessment.
Okay.
Vince, you don't want to bring it up for me?
Because it would be interesting for when we see that to see how decisions are handled for our business, because, from my perspective, I am the one that's more logical, and, it's about business, and emotion is really not as much a part of it as people sometimes think it is. Kim does have a little bit of emotion on that, and she really wants to know, the feeling side of it, whether, it's not right. And I'm like, well, it doesn't matter if it's not right. It's business, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
She's more, she's less detailed than you, right? So
Yes.
You're a much more higher detail person. So that's Renee and I have that struggle sometimes in communication. Renee will
Big
be
struggle.
hammering me with details, and I literally go numb. Like I don't.
He's like glazed over.
I'm like, is she still talking to me? I'm not hearing anything she's saying because
He's
I'm
like,
so
la,
done.
la, la, la.
so there's, but it's understanding that about each other that makes it easier to kind of work through those things and being able to laugh about it a little bit.
All right, I'm going to start the final closeout music because we're down to one person watching, so it's time for us to go off here. We'll end the broadcast, and then we can continue on ourselves. But I think that I think you might get a few people to at least contact you.
I think someone contacted me already.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They contacted you and not me. What's up with that? You don't even have a Wi-Fi working for these tech people.
It's my good looks and charm.
Uh-huh.
Oh, all right. So that's going to do it, folks. Thank you for hanging out, and we'll see you next week, or actually in 2 weeks, maybe. Later.
Who contacted you?